All right, so in this video, we're going to dive in and look at the HTML tags that are used for lists and the different attributes that will go along with it. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to have an idea of what programming lists will look like, so we'll be ready to add them to our campus services website. So our learning targets for this particular lesson are that we can use HTML tags to create ordered lists, unordered lists, and what are called definition lists. So we'll look at 3 different types of lists, and then we'll also be able to use attributes to change the type of ordered or unordered lists on our screen. So those are the 2 main things you should take away from this video. So first on your screen, you see the tags for an unordered list. Now remember, unordered means that the order of the items does not matter, and that's why it's called a bulleted list, because you don't need to have something numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 or A, B, C, D or anything like that. So you'll notice that the tag is pretty straightforward. We have unordered list at the beginning of our tag and then closing unordered list tag at the end of our list. So this will be around all of the list items contained in our list. So notice that those tags indicate the start and the end. And then from here we actually have 3 main types of bullet symbols that we can use. The disk, that closed in circle, will be your default. The square, we can also change it to, and then we can also change our unordered list to have a circle. And we can switch between these and decide which type of bullet symbol we'd like to use by using what's called the type attribute. So you can see down here that I have my unordered list beginning tag, and what you'll also see is that I added something new inside of here. I added something called an attribute, and these attributes give the list specific traits. And what this is saying is the type of list I want, so the type of unordered list bullet symbol that I want to use is equal to square. And what this will do is it will ensure that our unordered list has a square. And if you wanted it to have a circle or a disk, you would simply replace this word square with circle or disk, and it would update the type of bullet you are using within your unordered list. So while the unordered list is great when we just have bulleted items, an ordered list is used when the order of the items in the list actually matters. So this is something that is numbered, or something that's listed A, B, C, D, or something that you have in Roman numerals, like an outline of this happened first, this happened second, this happened third. So ordered lists actually use numbers or letters or Roman numerals for the different bullet points in place of the square, the circle, or the disk. So you'll notice that very similar to unordered lists, we have the OL list tag. So OL stands for ordered list, while the previous slide had UL standing for unordered list. And then you'll notice that the symbols that can be used are something like 1, 2, 3, 4, which will be your default for an ordered list. You could also use capital letters, so capital A, capital B, capital C, or you could use lowercase letters. And then you can do the same thing with Roman numerals. You can have uppercase Roman numerals or lowercase Roman numerals. And we decide on that attribute, we decide on that type of symbol used for order, very, very similarly to how we chose the bullet type for the unordered list. So you'll notice here I have the same thing going on. I just say type equals, and in quotations, I put the first symbol of the list type I'd like to use. So if I want to use capital letters A, B, and C, I put a capital A in there to say start at capital A and then move on to capital B, capital C, capital D, etc. If you had a lowercase a, so if you put this A in there instead, it would do the lowercase letters. If you do uppercase I, that will do the uppercase Roman numerals, while the lowercase I will do the lowercase Roman numeral. So it's pretty simple to use that type attribute to create the list type that you would like. Now, both the ordered and unordered list use what are called list item tags. So this LI tag is how we actually add different list items into our list. And I'll show you some example code on the next few slides. But the LI tag is how we add a list item into an unordered list, or a list item into an ordered list. And really what's inside of those ordered list and unordered list tags are a bunch of list items. So we can put as many list items as we would want, and we need to use one for every single item in the list. And you'll see that as we look through code on the next few slides. Okay, so on the slide in front of you, you see a coding example on the left, and you see what would actually appear in the browser on the right-hand side. So what you'll notice here is that when I create my list, it doesn't actually naturally create a heading for my list. So if I didn't have this heading up above, there would be no My Family up above. So if you want to add a heading or a title to your list, you need to do so by using those heading tags that we've talked about. Now the next thing you'll notice is that I used my unordered list tags. So I have the opening tag here, the closing tag here, and I specified that I wanted to use circles. Now what you'll notice here is when I ran my program, this is actually a disk. So if I had a circle, it would result in open circles. But you get the idea. The type chooses the type of list bullet that we're going to have. So what you'll then notice from here is that for all the list items that are contained within this unordered list, I actually indent them in so I can clearly see here starts my unordered list, here are all the items inside of it, here ends my unordered list. And notice that every single list item has its own pair of list tags. And you'll see that those elements, those items in my list, go one after another, after another, after another. So making that unordered list is pretty simple. You just utilize those list item and unordered list tags together just in a very structured fashion. And then something to just note, I'm not going to show you an ordered list example, but an ordered list example would almost look identical to this. So you'd have the OL tag instead of the UL tag. You'd maybe choose a different type, but this list item part would look exactly the same. The only difference is these bullets here would change to something like 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, whatever you chose. And finally, the third type of list we're going to look at is called a definition list. And these are a little bit different than the unordered ordered lists. There's still a tag to dictate the beginning of the list, DL, definition list, and end of the list. But what's contained inside is something that looks a little bit different. So every definition list consists of pairs of two parts. So what will happen is you'll have your term. So for example, maybe I would do something like cat, and then it'll have a definition for that term that's indented in, so it'll be something that gets indented. And maybe I'll put that my cat is named Tiger, and he's 2 years old. So you can see that you have the term, and then you have the definition, which is the definition of that term, indented in a little bit, and so they look like they are term definition pairs all the way through this list. And you'll see a couple of examples after we get through the next few tag slides. So once we've created our definition list, we need to create our definition terms. So you'll notice here DL was my definition list, DT is my definition term. And this indicates the start and the end of a term to be defined. So that was like on the previous page where I wrote cat. That was the term. And then the second piece will be the definition, which we talk about on the next slide. So something to look at here is that it left justifies the term, which means it brings it all the way to the left-hand side of your page because it's going to indent the definition portion. So the terms are always left justified, and then the definitions, which we'll see in just a second, are always indented in right after its corresponding term. So just like we have the definition term, I call these definition tags, which sounds a little silly, but they're part of a definition list, and they're the definition part. So you had the term on the previous slide. The definition now uses the DD tags, and these will be offset by indenting in several spaces. So that was where I indented in, and I wrote Tiger 2 years. So the definition portion will get indented in, the term will not. And you'll see this on the next slide when I show you a coding and browser example. All right, so here I tried to color code as best as I could to help you to see what's going on here. So first you'll see that I have a heading of size 4 saying HTML terms, and then here I can see the start of my definition list and the end of my definition list. So notice that everything kind of gets indented in to say this is inside of my definition list. All of these term definition pairs will be inside of that particular list. And then from here, what you're also going to notice is that we have a bunch of definition term, definition, definition pairs. So there's a term with its definition, a term with its definition, a term with its definition. So it's assumed that these will come in pairs, a term with its definition. And you can see all the terms are left justified. So I have web page, website, and web browser. And then you can see that all the definitions, based on their tags, get indented in a few spaces to offset them. So when you're creating a definition list, make sure that you include these pairs and make sure you know which pieces should be indented and which should be left justified. So at this point, you're ready to jump back into the next video, and that one will walk you through adding lists into our campus tutoring services website.